If you're building your ABA company and you're tired of guessing, this is for you. We built the EBCBA blueprint to give you real structure, systems, and support without the fluff. Details are in the description. LaToya Williams of Aligned Consultants is here to talk to us about what she wished she had known before she started her company. We have these conversations with either people thinking about starting an ABA company or already in the field, already in the midst of battle, right? Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of things that we don't think about. LaToya, welcome, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Excited to share my expertise and my experience in just overall the care industry world. So I'll go over just a little bit about my background. So I've been in the care industry since 2004 here in Arizona. So I started actually in the credentialing department for an MCO for health plan care. Went on to provider networking and then started a girls group home. Funding got a little shaky, so closed that group home, went back to work for the MCO as a credentialing manager. They lost the state contract, and then I went back into the entrepreneurship, and I started an integrated care clinic with an ABA program within it. Then I had a couple of BHRFs, which are behavioral health residential facilities here in Arizona. And now I'm just doing pure consulting. So I think the difference really between me and other consultants is that I know how the MCOs think and what credentialing is, but I also know the pain points of being in the care field in the industry and some of the pain points that you experience as an entrepreneur. So I know for me, just working with various providers, I was also a BHT, I've done RBT work. And so I got into the field and I loved to serve. From there, of course, I was like, I'm going to start my own clinic. When I decided to do that, it was such a huge undertaking. Thankfully, I had some of the back-end experience from working from the MCOs, but it was still a really challenging time for me. I didn't have any mentors or any coaches, so I just was winging it, going to free trainings from the state, licensing, the MCOs, those different things until you can get enough revenue to be able to hire a mentor and do some of those things. One of the biggest things that I wish I had done, though, was study the industry and study the market, study at least 3 competitors, if you will. How do they do things? Their websites, even do some cold calling and see how they do their intakes. If they have forms on their websites, try to get as much information as I can about how they're operating, how they're functioning, go to their social media handles, those kind of things, but pick 3 of them and see how successful they are. Some of their background, like when they started, who are the owners, if you can get that information. But that would really help you gauge how you're going to start your business, what it looks like, because a lot of that is public information. Of course, you won't know company culture, but you will be able to see some of like their processes online. Even if you are a current BCBA or RBT working with your current employer, offer to do some of the extra things outside of just service delivery. Help with billing, take that initiative to be more a part of the administrative functions of the practice. So the biggest thing is really the marketing and getting to know what this industry entails, because service delivery and back-end stuff, entrepreneurship, administrative functions are completely different. And depending on your career path, a lot of BCBAs, they'll start, or RBTs, they'll start doing service delivery, and then they will be the clinical directors. So they won't have as much service delivery interaction. They'll be all administrative. To get to that point, you've got to dive in. So you've got to be wanting to know more instead of just your caseload and then you're out of there, and then decide to want to be an entrepreneur. There's no class to really teach you how to be a CEO. It's trial and error. So you become a CEO and you're just like, what the heck? What do I do? How do you do that? You're trying to also learn leadership in all of that, how not to be just a boss and just bark at people and actually lead so that your company or your employees actually see you as a team player and just not a dictator. So I know that was really important for me to establish a culture within my company. So people wanted to stay, that I was approachable, but there wasn't a hierarchy of chain of command. Don't jump over your boss to get to me, but also have some kind of sense of an open door policy so people feel comfortable to work within your organization. There was a lot of things that I had to learn while I was an active CEO. So there was, like I said, no training for that. It was just feedback from my employees, bumping elbows with other CEOs that were in the same field or even not in the same field. There's a lot of things that you can learn from people that are running their own organizations, that are marketing companies or customer service. Don't be narrow-minded just to think that it needs to be an owner of a VA clinic. Leadership as a whole is very vast, and you can learn a lot of different things from other people in other industries.
Yeah, I think one of the pitfalls of making that transition from clinician to CEO, whatever you call yourself in your company, founder, owner, whatever your title is, that CEO position, that chief in charge of execution, chief executive officer, someone needs to be filling that role. And we often find this gap between owner, which is just somebody who owns stock of a company, and the BCBA. That's your clinician. But we've got these two spots between those two things. One is your strategic leadership, that's chasing the shiny objects, new ideas, vision, leadership, and driving everybody forward. Between that and the clinician, we still need a manager to establish structure, dividing and conquering the business, and making sure that everything has hierarchy and that the proper SOPs are developed. All you have to do to be an owner is go file for an LLC. Poof. Like magic, you're a business owner. Congratulations. And that is where your journey is really starting. The BCBA clinician part is way down the line from that. This major gap that needs to be filled in. And really, we get this request all the time. Do you have a checklist to start an ABA company? Checklists are technician clinician things, right?
Yeah.
That's a component of a system that comes way down the line. That's after your strategy and your vision are established, after you have your structure in place, your hierarchy and the flow of your execution in your business. And then you get checklists. That clinician mind that is the technician mind. And there's both of those things, because your billing specialist is a technician role. Your behavior technician is a technician role. Your BCBA is the clinician side. They need the checklist. They need the standard operating procedures, the playbooks, cadences. I always have this phrase that I use: your business will tell you. If properly constructed, your business will tell you what it needs, where it needs it, and when it needs it. How do I know when to hire? You don't, unless your business is capable of telling you that. You have to program your business with that language. Our cancellations are too high. Our clinical quality is stalling or suffering because we're pushing our frontline employees too much with too many billable hours. Or our bottom line is suffering because we're not getting enough billable hours. Where is that information coming from? It's you programming it. And that's the manager role.
Yep.
And I think there's a lot of misconceptions. We were green rooming this before. Josh brought up a conversation we had with a BCBA who, in one or two sentences, summed up one of the most common misconceptions across the industry that is causing people to cross that bridge from clinician to business owner. And that is, I'm seeing what the insurance company is paying on this unit. And then I see what I am getting paid on this unit. $95 is getting billed. I'm getting paid $50 or $60. I want to make up that gap, and I'm going to go start my own business. And that's not how it works.
Not at all.
At the start, if you're just doing direct service independently, there's a pretty good chance that you are going to get less money per hour. Once your overhead is covered, your insurance and all that stuff, it's about being scalable. It's about being able to bring more team members in and serving people at a scale that is both sustainable and manageable, where it doesn't take over your life, but it's also more financially rewarding. There's a balance there. And that's what needs to be thought through before you dive into it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What are the most common things that you're dealing with at that startup point?
A lot of my clients, the biggest issue that they're facing now is all the work that it entails after they start an LLC. They'll say, I've already got the LLC. I already have my policy and procedures. I have all the documents, but now what? And that's why I started with the marketing, because all they know is service delivery. That's it. When they get the clients and they'll say, the current practice that I'm at now, they have a waiting list. So that is what kind of pushed them to start their own clinic, their own thing. But they have, like you mentioned, all the documentation and all. I'd like to say that's the easiest part of all this, is even getting licensed. It seems like a huge undertaking, but once you do it once, you're okay. I know whatever the state you're in, what they're looking for, that kind of thing, that you can read the policy and procedures. People use Chat GPT and so on. But once you have all that administrative part done, then you have to get over there and beat the bushes. You got to market for contracts. You have to do all those things. So I think the biggest thing is, like you said, the misconception with starting everything and looking for that checklist, the checklist that's going to teach them how to, oh, did you do your LLC? Did you found a payroll software? You found an EHR. Okay. Now you look great on paper, but you don't have any kind of leadership skills. You don't have any contracts. You don't have any employees, or you're trying to scale too fast, like you mentioned. If you don't have any workflows and processes in place, your business is not going to be able to tell you, we need another RBT, or we're spending too much money on this software. When is the time to look for another one? And then another thing that people usually do too is they start going out and buying all of these things. And so they're hopping from software to software, when sometimes as a small business, you got to start on paper. You got to go old school. You might have to start on paper and have a benchmark for, when I get to 25 clients or whatever your number is, then I'm going to look at the EHR system. Because what happens, you have all this money going out. You didn't prepare for claims to pay. Most of the contracts say we have 45 or 60 days to pay a claim. And does it take that long? Sometimes it doesn't. But when it does, those are talking points that they put to cover them when they have delayed payments. You didn't prepare for any of that, but then you have all this going out, not enough coming in. And like you mentioned, Derek, then you'll start beating your staff over the head with do more because we're not having enough revenue coming in. So I think that's why it's really important to do the market analysis, try to dive in and learn as much as you can about the industry overall before you decide, do I really want to be an entrepreneur? I know it sounds good and it may look good, but most people don't know what it takes as far as the owner and entrepreneur to even get their business this far, what it took for them to start, how much personal sacrifice they had to make to get to this point. It is doable, but entrepreneurship is not for everyone. It just isn't. And I've come in contact with countless people that have started, and I'll follow up with them and they've closed their practice. Why? Because like you said, there was that gray area that they were like, I didn't know it was going to be all of that. So it's one of those things that you really have to hone in on and study. And there's even a lot of entrepreneurs or CEOs that you'll be surprised that will allow you just to shadow or pick their brain. Some of them won't. Some of them are like, you got to pay to play, but you won't know unless you ask. I always say a closed mouth doesn't get fed. So you get into those community meetings and start bumping elbows with some of these practices, they may be more willing to share. And if they don't, they just don't. But just be resourceful. The ABA group, that's a great group. There's other Facebook groups that you can join, just to actually see what this truly is outside of all the fluff and outside of the pretty logo and the colors and everything. When you go in the clinic, what did it take for you to get here? A lot of sacrifice, a lot of sleepless nights, long hours. You really have to invest and pour into yourself. And then also just continue to evolve, continue to grow as the owner, as the CEO. And then, like I mentioned before, I'm really big on leadership. You have to be able to lead, and that's not a natural skill for most of us. Some of it is. For most of us, it's not. And so you have to be able to learn how to lead, learn how to talk to your staff, learn how to show them that you'll get in there and get dirty too, because that goes a long way. People don't like to work for people that just sit there and see their company going down and they're on vacation again. Put the gloves on, get in there with us. And also be open to our feedback to see what can make things better. Because I know I had stopped doing service delivery for years. So I didn't know some of the changes that was going on. I would have meetings and ask the staff, like, is this working? Is it not working? Yeah, it's working. Or no, can we do this? This is working a little bit better. And that is also a component of leadership, is not to just dictate this is the way it is and this is how we're going to do it. Now, given there are some things when it comes to licensing and compliance that I would tell my team, like, this is just what it is. This is a directive. There's no other ways that we can navigate through this other than doing what is being told, what is regulated or per licensure or the state or whatever it is. But I always make sure that I was open to feedback, because I would tell my team that they're my customers and their customers are our clients. So I'm going to take care of them. They need to take care of the clients. And it worked. It worked. So they felt they were being heard and taken care of, and not just, oh, I'm going to jump over them to get to the clients. That was one of the ways that I ran my practice, and it was successful in doing that. But again, those are things that you don't know when you first start. You're like, what am I doing? I can do these notes all day long. I can supervise people. I can do the modalities, but how do I do all of this other stuff that has to be done? So once I'm done working with clients, then I have this mountain of administrative stuff that I have to do. Then I'm getting overwhelmed, and it just becomes like a snowball effect of just now you don't want to do this anymore. Or you've been operating in the red so long that you maybe didn't know that you could have introduced another program here. We incorporated counseling. The parents that are bringing these kiddos, they're stressed out, they're overwhelmed. What was the support for them? So that's another way that people don't know how to think or to pivot into things is once the well starts going dry in your particular state, because in your state, rates can be really low. We see that all the time. They're cutting rates. They're giving people only so many sessions. What else can you do to be able to make sure that your business can sustain this storm? Look at other programs that you can incorporate. Okay, you do ABA, but then you also have something for the parents. You get you an LPC or something, offer counseling, offer parenting groups. Another way to be able to bill to keep your staff paid, keep the overhead paid, those things that are more on the operational side. But like you said, if you don't have things in place on the forefront, you're not going to know where you're bleeding out at. You're going to think you're bleeding out everywhere. And it's like, no, this right here, this is what we need to focus on.
So let's talk order of operations for a second. And you mentioned processes and procedures. I have my LLC started. One of the problems that I have with the typical flow, and this comes from even the big companies that are the practice management companies, they put out a checklist, right? So these are the things you need to do. Get your processes and procedures. I had a client who got on a call with us and said, I'm like $10,000 invested into their business. And the things that they had spent money on were direct recommendations from a consultant who was part of that money that they had paid and one of the accreditation organizations. The accreditation organization had sent them down this path where, okay, you're going to start an LLC, call this law firm. This is who we recommend to do this. They call the law firm, they do a consult and pay $3,500 to have the law firm form their entity for them. Okay. And then the next step is with the consultant is here's all your forms and procedures. Here's all your documents and the stuff that you're going to need, your employee handbook and everything. And here's the problem that I have with that. Number one, the lawyer that works on our ABA Impact team, their law firm, when we first talked to them, we're like vetting things out. And I said, so what do you guys charge to form an entity? And his answer was the right answer. And this is why we proceeded. He said, we don't offer that service unless we're doing something else for you. You can do that yourself. I'm like, okay, this is who we want. So here's the gap between getting those processes and procedures in order and forming your entity. If you don't have what you are doing, why you exist, your mission, your vision, what you are going to become, and then do a little bit of homework on your market. You need to know what you're going to have to pay for frontline employees. You need to know what you're going to get paid from the payers. And I always tell people, just go right for 97153, find out who the crappiest payer in your market is for that code, and then that's your number. That's the worst case scenario. Go per hour, figure out what that rate is. Then figure out what your payout is going to have to be to generate the income for that unit, and then add 25% to it. You also need to figure out what your delivery model is really going to be, because we talk to a lot of people, and there's nothing wrong with this, but a lot of people are rolling out in-home services. And when they are at a certain point, or they usually say, well, like, when are you going to do that? When I can afford it. What does that mean? Clinic services and in-home services are two separate operations. Those are different operations. Then if you're throwing school in the mix, totally different ballgame. You're dealing with a different kind of payer. There's much more interaction. You're working with teachers and you're working with parents. You're working with the school administrators. Those are three totally different businesses. in my
Right.
view. And when
Right.
you bring in a lawyer or a consultant at the beginning of your company and they jump straight into policies and procedures,
Huh?
it's impossible to actually develop those accurately until
Right.
you know what is my strategic objective, right? This, by
Mhm.
the way, is what we cover in our free course. So if you want to do the free foundation course, go and do that. We break all of this out to strategic objective. And your strategic objective is, what is your company going to have to do in order for you to meet your personal goals, to meet your revenue goals for the business? What are you aiming for business wise? What are you going to point at so that if you come close to hitting that target, you're going to be where you want to be in your personal life and you're going to help the people who you want to help? Accomplishing both of those things is possible, but you have to plan for it. And
Yeah.
it drives me nuts when people are buying packages of procedures and documents for, I've seen them as much as $1,800, $1,300 or $40 or $25 per form. And you're going to have to develop out those procedures in your business process by process, because if you don't, you're going to end up with someone else's business. And it's not
Yeah.
going to meet your goals. It's going to meet something that looked like what their goals were. So let's talk about the chronology here, right? So you're developing your business strategy. You have your mission, your vision. What is the divide and conquer, right? I break it out into functional areas. You get into the structure course, and we're developing your structure: finance, operations, marketing, clinical. And if you're bussing kids around, you need a transportation functional area. If
Yeah.
you're doing in-home services, in-home service delivery, how are you dividing these up? And what areas do you see people missing in their business where they're scaling into chaos and they've got this gap in a functional area?
Yeah. That's great that you guys have that course, because one of the things that we do is we do it in phases, and we do start with the mission and values. And what are you looking to do? See what you know about this and where you're headed and where you want to be. Because otherwise you have these policy and procedures that people buy, and most of the time they don't even know what they're looking at. They're just like, they sold it to me and it's got to be right. And then as you start operating your business, you're like, I don't want to do that, or I don't like that. And we don't do that. But it's like just a template that you've purchased now that doesn't have any of your input into it. So I think one of the biggest things that I've seen for people that wanted to start is they want to do everything. Like you said, they want to do in-home, school, like they want to do everything. So they don't niche down to anything. And you can't start a business that way. You can't be good at all of these various components. And like you said, those are very different programs. So school is very different than home, and home is very different than clinic. So I think one of the biggest things that I've seen is them just wanting to start an ABA. They say, I want to start an ABA clinic. And they don't really know what that entails, or they don't know who they're going to serve. They just work for an agency now. They work with kiddos 5 to 12, and that's what they want to focus on. And they haven't done any research on anything else. So they know they need to get licensed and policy and procedures. The other forms that they need, they don't know where to get them. Some of them they've never seen because they're not in the entrepreneur space. So I think too, sometimes what happens is when they hire consultants, like you said, the consultant sends them to this person and you buy this and you buy that. So now they have all of these documents, all of this fluff. They don't know what it means. They're overwhelmed at this point, but you've given them a whole bunch of literature, a whole bunch of documents. And then there's also no training that supports that. So one thing that we do at Align Consultants is that you don't know what you're doing. So me giving you 100 documents, it's not going to help you grow or be successful. Because even though the header will be self-explanatory, what do I do with this and when do I pull this form out? Is there a mock file for client files or employee files? Where do I get the resources? Is there a link to this? So one of the things we also do is teach our entrepreneurs how to be resourceful and not to wait always on the answer. So if you can find it, if you can go straight to the head and you can schedule an appointment or you can do a training, don't wait for those kind of things. Learn how to be resourceful. But back to your question, I think for me, that has been the biggest thing, is everybody wanting to do everything. They want to do it all. And in the process of them wanting to do it all, they're like, this is different. Why need this for that? Why do I need that? And then instead of just saying, I'm just going to be clinic based for right now, then I'm going to see in my area, establish a need. Is there a need for that? Or do I just need to sit and be right here until I can flourish this program. And then maybe I don't never go home. Maybe I go to the school. But I think that's the biggest thing is why we do everything. That's what I've seen in my clients is when they come to me, they want to open a clinic. And that's all they say. I want to open an ABA clinic. But they don't know who their three biggest competitors are in their area. They don't know what the Medicaid rates are. They don't know what the MCOs, the health plans in their area. They don't know if they're open to contracting right now. That's huge because I've come in contact with a lot of consultants that tell their clients, oh, I can get you contracted. They can't. If the network is closed, it's closed. That's what that means. So a lot of people aren't transparent. So they get people in and they sell them all these packages. And then they're still in limbo with an empty clinic. They don't have any clients. They don't have any contracts. And they saw all this money going out. So yeah, that's the biggest thing I found is them just want to do everything. And, having a heart and a passion to serve only gets you so far when you're actually trying to operate a business because you still have a lot of responsibilities. You're responsible for payroll. You're responsible for compliance. You're responsible for all the overhead costs and those things. Really, that's why I always start with the mission and values. Like you said, what do you want to get out of this? What is your why? Where do you see your business in the next year? And really phase it out instead of just giving it all to a person at once. That overwhelms people. I haven't come in contact with anybody that just give me everything. And then I'll follow up with them. And did you get a chance to read that? Yes or no? So I've also been able to gauge like clients, their strong suits, how they learn and how they operate. And that just came from operating a clinic, working with therapists and stuff, because everybody learns at a different place in a different way. Some people are very visual. Some people need a little bit more hand-holding to get there, or I'm able to figure out how I need to disseminate the information to them. Some people I can give it to them, they give them a deadline, but I also am very clear on this is your business and you have to invest. You have to dive in. So I know how to do it. I'm trying to show you.
Yes. Yeah.
What I'm doing.
You're going to have situations that you're going to have to deal with, and you're not always going to be able to pull someone in to help you solve that problem. So your familiarity with all of these different areas of your business, your functional breakdowns, what is this function that needs to exist in my business? How must it operate? What processes are required to hold that function up as it's holding the entire business up? And when there's a problem, how is it solved? And in order for you to solve that problem, you don't want to have to go out and pay $25,000 to bring a consultant in and say, oh, you're a financial person or a medical billing expert. Come in and fix my billing system. And we're constantly dealing with this with our new people that are coming to us where they've dealt with, there's a great quote where a pretty famous entrepreneur said on a podcast I listened to, and he said, basically, business ownership often, unfortunately, is living the same 6 months of hell on repeat for 20, 30 years, and then you die. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be that way. Those recurring problems that keep happening come from a systemic level issue where I was talking to a ABA owner in Texas, and they said, I brought in another BCBA. They came in, they fixed a bunch of stuff. Everything was running great. BCBA left. All the progress walked out the door with the BCBA. Oh, wow. Okay, now I got to fix this. All right, I promoted my next BCBA who had the next level of seniority after this person left. And so, okay, you're the clinical director now. Let's fix all this stuff. A year and a half of hell follows that. They finally get control over it. Major billing issues, major operational issues, drop in customer satisfaction that they really don't have any KPIs for, but she can see it, right? Then they hire a consultant and another BCBA. And this BCBA was a clinical director and had some leadership experience. So came in and it was really great. And the consultant came in to help that BCBA get things back in order. And then 2 years in, that BCBA leaves, goes and starts their own practice in town and takes several of the RBTs with them. Not because they were poaching, but just because the RBTs knew if I want to continue working under this system, that's where I need to go work.
Yeah.
And it really came down, and I asked her, I said, so what is your mission? She knew that. What is your vision? Where are you going? Not really sure. I'm trying to survive. Okay, what are the areas of your business that you're managing or not doing so well in? I don't really know. I'm pretty good at finance. You're just getting piled with all of this stuff over and over again. And when you build your business around people, when those people leave, a part of your business's brain walks out the door with them. and you're scaling chaos. It's a house of cards.
Yeah.
And as
Yeah.
soon as you pull one out, everything falls down. And it's really about having your plan, knowing what you're getting into. You don't have to gain mastery of your financial management. You don't have to gain mastery of operations management. You probably already have some level of mastery, hopefully on the clinical side. You do need to master your strategic leadership, knowing at all times, where the heck are we going? We've had this little diversion. We had an audit. We had an associate leave, or the insurance payer rules have changed. And now we've got this major adjustment. Those kinds of things are always going to happen. But if they happen to you while you're under a pile of BS that you're just trying to survive and crawl out from under, you're not even going to see it coming. Your point is great. Make sure that you're not taking on everything. If you try to do everything, you'll likely end up doing close to nothing. Michael Jordan, I'm a huge fan, but I'm not a golf fan, and I'm not a baseball Michael Jordan fan. You've got this one thing that you're great at, and God bless him for being able to do that. But most people are not Michael Jordan. You have to design a business, and you have to design your life around you and everyone else being able to perform at about 65% all the time.
Yeah.
If your business requires 100% input at all times from everyone, you're going to burn everybody out. You're going to burn yourself out too. And I think it's about time management before you start.
Yeah.
And understanding that these are not all things that I can do. Let me go through and think this entire process and system out all the way to the end to the best of my ability. You're looking at your finance stuff. Just understand what KPIs are important to you. Understand what feedback you want to get from that system and how you can gauge whether you're doing well or you're not doing well in that area. And that's a language that you have to teach your business to speak to you so that you know what's going on. And your business will tell you, but you have to teach it the language first.
Yeah, you got to have something in place. Those things can be fluid, but you can't correct what you don't know or don't see coming, like you said.
And have it documented. Have a system that's on paper, not in somebody's head. Because if you have something that's on paper and LaToya can walk in and go, I can see everything. Let's switch these couple things around. Here's your bottleneck. Let's fix that. And then you have something that you can hand back to the company and say, I'm upgrading this piece of your business system, and now it's going to work better. If you have a consultant coming in and just teaching one of your people something, or even teaching you, it's still going to be centered around you as the source of truth. You have to get that stuff out of your head. You have to get it into a place that's accessible by everyone on your team who needs it, and make sure that you have that system out there. So let's talk about 5 years in. So we've started a business. We're 5 years in. Things are a mess. We've scaled into chaos a little bit. What's a strategy that you've used to help start turning the aircraft carrier around and move in that different direction? Rafaela brought up pivoting. Pivoting is sometimes going down a new path, or adding a path, and sometimes it's changing directions. So what are some strategies you've seen work in that area?
Consistent management meetings are crucial. A lot of practices don't do that. They start hiring clinical directors, managers, those kind of things. They're not having consistent meetings with them. So they may be having one-on-one check-ins, but I would meet with my team bi-weekly just to try to get ahead of those things. Now, 5 years in, there were some things that happened in Arizona with like rate cuts and those kind of things, or just high turnover. Those were my biggest challenges, were rate cuts and then just high turnover, especially after COVID. People were getting a lot of money to stay at home. So going back to work was like, I don't want to do that. Or they just wanted more money just because of just the economy and how expensive things were. So that brought a lot of challenges because we were still working off the rates that Medicaid had or the other contractors had, which made it very difficult to meet their salary requirements and their demands. That was huge for me. That was a big challenge. So what we did still was to have those meetings. I would encourage feedback from my team. Some of those I just had to make executive decisions based off the financials and the numbers, meeting with accountants and seeing what we can deliver. But I also had to create a different environment. Even though there wasn't like a lot of monetary compensation with doing the work, we had to have a lot of team building, those kind of things to adjust just the culture of the company to get people to, for one, stay and to buy into where we were headed. The 5-year mark also was very pivotal because I had introduced the other programs. I had to stop doing more of the integrated care. So we were doing medical on the medical side and really focus on the ABA and the behavioral health. So that year mark also was a time where I had to cut a program. So having those meetings was where I realized, looking at the financials, having those meetings with the team, where I realized where we had to cut programs and enhance others.
So yeah, everybody hates meetings. I hate meetings. I think most people showing up, walking into the meeting is like, here's another meeting. So what is a good structure for a management meeting for the CEO to lead and to receive the appropriate feedback from their team?
You're right. Nobody likes meetings. I always started with icebreakers. I know it's like cliche, but it's super important. They were less formal. We did have an agenda, but it wasn't like, oh, here's the agenda. Make sure you check off of those things. Doing just overall check-ins with the team that wasn't always work related. And that sometimes was the icebreaker to see how things were going, like how's the kids, make it more of that family setting. And the meetings, regardless, were only an hour. So because nobody wants to sit at a conference table for 3 hours on end. So our meetings were chopped up and we did them in pressing order of priority. So we were actually getting things accomplished. We met bi-weekly. We did the icebreakers and got straight to the point. That really helped. And then also letting the team know that meetings, you have to do those. There's no way around them. Even though no one likes them, they're requirements to operate a business successfully. I also would have various people conduct the meeting. I use that as a training opportunity for my management team because, of course, they always see the CEO as just that kind of authoritative figure. But people would always assume, oh gosh, are we gonna get ripped a new one now if the CEO or the owner is showing up? But giving people opportunities to facilitate the meeting helped just break down some of the monotony of the meeting and also have a little calm environment while we were conducting business.
I think leadership engagement is powerful too. Like when you have your managers together and they're managers, these are people that you've put in their position for a reason, hopefully, not just, hey, I really like you. You're doing a good job. I'm going to make you a manager. That happens a lot too, but they're serving in a role. They own a certain functional area or process in the business and they're responsible for it. I think it's a powerful tool to use when you can bring a decision that's maybe a kind of a high level decision, but not that big to the CEO. When you say, like, okay, there's maybe 2 or 3 different things that we can do here. And you lay out the options and say, we're going to put this to a vote before I pull the trigger on doing one of these things. Let's discuss this. And then we're going to move forward with a decision, right? And putting that out in front of those people, it makes them more engaged. It makes them feel like they're involved in the direction of the company and giving them some empowerment, some authority to those things.
Yeah.
So Michelle was asking if we could talk a little bit about marketing and that growth side of things. We use the word marketing, and I think a lot of people just skip over it. When we're breaking it down into functional areas, we get to the marketing, and I say, don't ignore this. We are in a market that is generally not constrained by demand. There's usually plenty of that, but your marketing isn't just for your clients. Marketing is for humans and your reputation with those humans. And you have humans on 2 ends of your machine, your output and your input. Your output is on the client side, but your input is your RBTs, your BCBAs, your support team. Those people that are coming to work for you on the input side are also going to look at your company and your reputation. And if you're not managing that, someone else will. So let's talk a little bit about your marketing strategy and the growth side of things.
Yeah, and word travels. You think this is a big industry, your brand can be tarnished relatively quickly. So for marketing, you have 2 components. You have the old school way, and then you have social media, some of the SEO, your social proof and those things. But I think what people fail to realize is boots on the ground is still very important. I tell CEOs, you got to get beyond the chair until you can get a right hand to help you with that. So marketing for me was just that, boots on the ground. I had flyers and folders printed. I was presenting at hospitals, different various clinics. If the MCOs have regular meetings for direct support providers, opportunities to present. So I was constantly in front of someone's face promoting my company, was always leaving it in an open area for people to contact me, even parents. I would get referrals from parents just liking the vibe of the clinic, how we do things. That would bring on different clinics, even other clinics, ABA clinics in the area. You can't service everyone. So when they had overflow, just building a relationship with other clinics, with the MCOs, with the hospitals, with anybody that's in that care industry. They should know who you are. And the only way they're going to know who you are is if you stay in the forefront. Don't just drop your flyer off, follow up. And that's where the money is. The money is always in the follow up, always in the follow up. Oftentimes people will go and you're not the only one that's marketing to them, dropping their flyer or information, but you might be the only one or the only couple ones that's following up, that's being present, that's being at a vendor community events, those kind of things, set up at vendor events. So marketing in itself is a lot of work, but it's necessary. It's necessary for you to have a thriving business. Like I said, get beyond the chair and don't rely just on your social proof. That is very impactful and helps. But a lot of people are still very old school and they want to shake your hand. They want to actually see who's running this company. Who are you? What is your company name? You can read a lot about people from just social interaction, their body language, those kind of things. And then just get their card and follow up. Not annoyingly, but you need to follow up with them. And then when referrals get handed out, what are they going to think of? The last clinic that came. She's been consistent. So let's try her out. Let's send her a couple referrals. Do great with those referrals. Be very communicative with your other clinics or people that you're working with. Yes, we received the referral. Thanks for sending that referral. Drop some cookies off for those kind of things until you get branded and people know who you are and know that you're doing great work.
Yeah, there's a lot of focus on the social media side. There's a lot of focus on the SEO and search engine optimization and search engine marketing. And I think it's important to have those things incorporated in your business. But what you hit the nail right on the head. People will remember you above and beyond what they're Googling or seeing on social media if you've met them and you're in the same room with them. So getting involved with your local networking groups, getting involved, even if it's a business to business thing.
Yeah.
Those people have families, they have neighbors, they have kids, they have friends, they go to church, they know all of these things. So if they remember XYZ ABA company, I know exactly who to send you to, and I can't remember their name or where they're located or whatever, but here, let me check. I met Shauna or Sally or Bill from this company. Let me look them up on my LinkedIn or social media. One of the Gary V, who's a famous internet marketer, he says this, we've got maybe 5 years and Google is dead. Your Google ads are not going to do the same thing that they were doing before. When somebody is in their house and they're shouting, "Hey, Alexa," they're not saying, "Hey, Alexa, look up air conditioning companies near me." If they know Bob's Air Conditioning Company, they're saying, "Hey, Alexa, call Bob's Air Conditioning Company." So that name recognition that those people have in their minds, and they know, insert your company name here, and they can say that to Siri or Alexa, or I have to be quiet or my Siri is going to go off, but being able to actually remember your company name and know you, because that's going to put you way ahead of everyone else. And every time marketing comes up, because it's such a great idea, but I'm going to give credit to him. Brandon Varnado of Hello Farside. We just did a live stream with him last week. Brandon's like our go-to guy with the website development, email marketing, your waitlist management and engagement stuff. And he's fantastic. But he was talking about the referral thing. And this was getting back to what Michelle was asking about, getting into daycare centers and offering, putting together a program where you're going in and training their staff on behavior stuff and maybe a little bit of signs that you can recognize, things that you can do. And don't even ask for the referrals. Don't even make that part. Don't even make that part of your spiel. Just say, "Hey, we just want to make our community a better place. We want to make your daycare a better place and more equipped. And this is something you can tell the parents. Hey, once a quarter, we have a behavior analyst come in and do some training with our staff. And this is what sets our daycare apart from other daycares. It's on both the input and output side, because you'll get client referrals from there, and also daycare workers who maybe want to move up in their career and become a behavior technician. That might be something they could do too. That's a really powerful tool.
Diversifying, that's huge. And those are some of the things that you won't know unless you're networking. That's why you got to get beyond the chair, because you get to a point sometimes where your brain just caps out and you're like, okay, I've taken my business as far as I can. What else? And then when people bring it up, you're like, oh, that's a great idea. But that's why it's important to continue to just get a refresh, continue to bump elbows, to continue to get out there and do what you need to do to have a flourishing business.
If there's somebody who wants some help getting started or just some basic advice, or maybe they're trying to pivot,
Yeah,
how
let
do they
me
get a hold of you?
I will put my consulting link in the caption. Well, I'll just put all my contact information here. Anybody that needs some help or is stuck, feeling like they're stuck, I will offer a free consultation to strategize.
If you want LaToya's information, alignconsultants.com and the links there. LaToya, thank you for your time.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's always so much fun just to talk to somebody who's been there, done that, got the t-shirt. I've already been down this
Got the
road
t-shirt.
and I love it. Great advice.
Thank you. Take care.
We'll
Thank
be
you,
talking
everyone.
soon.
Likewise. Bye-bye.
You're already doing the work, investing your time, your energy, and your vision. So let's make it count. Build something that works without breaking you. The EBCBA Blueprint is the way. Get started for free with our foundation course.